put you on the map. This is Ron Costa broadcasting live from the Mappable USA studios here in Las Vegas. And folks, today we're talking about crowdfunding. A lot of these issuers, you're doing everything right. You're still following all the steps, and for some reason, just something's not working. Well, then this podcast is for you. We're gonna teach you about all this information. You're going to get a lot of good stuff, I'm sure. But before we get started, let's introduce Vicky Hutchmala from the World Token Market. Vicky, how are you doing today?
Fabulous, Ron. Another special day in Vegas. Happy, Vegas is the best place to live, best place to be in the whole world. And our guest today is a new guest. He hasn't been on our podcast before, but we're going to teach our listeners how to do the best crowdfunding possible with the tips to make it successful. So can't wait. Let's start.
Yeah, this is going to be applicable to a lot of people, I'm sure. So let's introduce Dr. Donald Moine. He's with the Association of Health Achievement, and he's also a well-known psychologist. Donald, how are you doing today?
I am doing great, Ron. Vicky, it's great to be with you today. I am the president of the Association for Human Achievement in Palos Verdes, California, and it's great to be with all of our listeners all around the world. I'm really excited about the interview. Folks, we're going to share some real golden nuggets of knowledge and wisdom with you today about fundraising, whether you're doing crowdfunding or you're doing a Reg D offering or a Reg A plus offering. If you are raising money, I guarantee you will find this very useful.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what the podcast is all about, and there's so many people doing crowdfunding now, or at least want to. They hear, a lot of people who have failed, and a couple who have succeeded, but a lot of these guys really don't know. They got to navigate somehow, and that's why I think this is really going to be a great podcast. But before we get into this, the matter of the podcast, Donald, maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, how you got to be where you are today.
Yeah, I've got a very unusual background. Most folks have never met someone like me. I'm a PhD psychologist, and, most psychologists work with neurotics, psychotics, schizophrenics, and that's very important work. And I like to say that I work with people who are very different. I work with business people. And folks, sometimes I wonder what is the difference, because business can drive you crazy, if you work at a high level in business, if you're a hard-charging person. And I worked my way through 9 years of college as a salesman, and I was pretty good at it. I was talking with Ron before the podcast, and we were just talking about different things, and I mentioned that I made enough money as a salesman to be able to buy a house in the same neighborhood that my college professors lived in. So I became, at that point, I thought I was going to be a college professor, but I saw how much money you could make in sales, how much fun you could have, and I got really interested in sales and marketing. And I decided when it came time to do my PhD dissertation, which is a massive, massive research project that you have to do after you finished all of your coursework to graduate, I decided to study sales superstars, these people that make $500,000, $1 million a year, $2 million a year or more in sales. And they're usually selling the same product or the same service as other people. For example, in insurance, you're selling the same insurance policies or annuities as other folks, but they are 10 times more effective or 20 times more effective. I've worked with some superstars in insurance who make, it's hard for folks to believe, but they make over $10 million a year. And they're selling the same products as everyone else. How do they do it? They are massively more persuasive. And so my expertise, what I did in my dissertation is I used tools that no one had ever used before, advanced tools from psycholinguistics, the science of words and language. I love words and language. I studied things like storytelling techniques, metaphor techniques, trust-building techniques, how you can use words to build trust, give someone that feeling like, Ron, I feel like I've known you all my life. You feel like my long-lost brother. Vicky, you feel like my long-lost sister. And I studied all of these other personality dynamics where words impact people's emotions and their mindsets. And my
all
dissertation,
about communication.
You're right, amen. It's all about communication, making a real connection with someone else, not tricking them, not taking advantage of them, but finding out their real needs. Is this right for them? Because everyone needs something. You want to remember that. Everyone needs something, no matter how rich they are, no matter who they are. Everyone has. That's part of being human. So,
and sometimes people just want someone to listen to them. When you talk about everybody needs something, sometimes they just want someone to actually listen to what they have to say, whatever that might be, with a focus on just them.
Exactly. And, that brings up something I had not planned to talk about this, Vicki, but it's such a stimulating and useful thing to be aware of. When you're raising money, if you're having a hard time doing it, and let's say that you're actually talking to someone instead of just relying on a platform, I find that sometimes people doing crowdfunding, they just think it's all about the platform. That's part of it. But frequently you have the opportunity to speak with someone. They want to talk to a live human being before they click that funding button. And especially with Reg A Plus, where people are raising big dollar amounts, $5 million, $10 million. They're raising big dollars. Rewards-based crowdfunding is very different, but they want to talk to you. And one of the things that's very useful to talk about, like Vicki said, they want to be heard. They want someone to listen to them. The reason that they may be reluctant to get involved is they've had a bad experience in the past. They invested in a deal that's blown up. And if you've been an investor, if you've been an investor, you have invested in deals that have blown up. I've done it. I'm supposed to be an expert in, at one point for a number of years, I was a registered investment advisor with the Securities and Exchange Commission, and I managed money with a partner of mine. So, even experts make mistakes. Warren Buffett makes mistakes. And so the most valuable thing you can do when you're talking to someone like that is to listen and say, tell me about what happened before. What went wrong? What were the warning signs? And then you want to show them how your deal is different. And so you can get to the point where you say, that will never happen here. You do not have to worry about that with us because, and then share with them the safeguards, share with them the protections, share with them the strength of your board of directors, the expertise you have. There's so many things that you can, if it's a real estate deal you're raising money for, Ron and I were talking about some real estate deals in Vegas, show them the strength of the marketplace. If you're developing something on a certain street or street corner, talk about the massive traffic counts. 180,000 cars drive by this intersection every day. Incredible visibility. And, that's just one of the reasons we know we're going to be really successful right here. So listening.
Well, and it doesn't matter how much information you might have in your documentation for your company or your website or whatever. You could have mountains of information, but investors have so many possibilities to choose from. They want to go with the person that they trust, and you can't develop or build trust in an investment unless you actually have a conversation where you can look each other into the eye and say, this is why you should invest with me. And the investor not only builds a trust with you, but a connection to you that you can only get through a word-of-mouth conversation to be able to feel good about what you're investing in, because investing is an emotional event. You want to give your money to a place where you feel the most comfortable, and you're going to accomplish that feeling of connection with a conversation, not by reading mountains of information.
Exactly. And actually, too much information can scare people.
Because you get lost in it.
you can get lost in it, and they just go into information overload because there are so many deals out there right now. I was contacted about 6 months ago on LinkedIn by a guy. I don't want to reveal too much personal information, so I'm going to leave some of that out, but he's the president of an artificial intelligence company. Really smart guy. You have to have a lot of real world intelligence to build an artificial intelligence company. That's something I figured out. And a real smart guy, and I went through his pitch deck and looked at why he's one of these guys that contacted me because he needed help. He thought he did everything right, and he was having a real struggle raising money. And they had so many products out there, and it was just absolute overload. And then when I got into his business plan, which he also shared with investors, it was like, well, we're going to raise $5 million now, and we're going to do this, this, and this, and then we're going to raise another $10 million, and we're going to do this, this, and this, and then we're going to raise another $20 million, and it just went on. And being a sophisticated investor, and any sophisticated investor would look at that and would just feel like, I'm going to get incredibly diluted. They're going to sell more and more equity. And what do they focus on? One of the things I asked him in one of our conversations is, what is your killer app? What is the one thing you're doing? He had developed a whole bunch of chat boxes and other things. I said, what is the one thing that you're doing that people must have? Because they weren't pre-revenue. It's tough to raise money when you're pre-revenue. You don't have any sales yet. They actually had a few very small sales, but he just couldn't identify it. I mean, if the president does not know what the killer app is, or what the main thing is, the main reason that someone should invest with you, how they're, because all investors want to know, how am I going to get my money back? That's another mistake I see people making, when they're raising money, whether it's through crowdfunding or through Reg A Plus offering or Reg D. The investor wants to know, how am I going to get my money back, and when am I going to get it back? What is the exit strategy? And I had people hiring me to go over their pitch decks. They paid someone else to develop a nice pitch deck, and I just find so many problems in these. There's a lot of good stuff in there too, but the sad thing is, the truth is that you can have an overall good pitch deck, but if you have certain red flags, which it's amazing, these company founders, these entrepreneurs, they're really smart, but they're so close to the forest, they can't see the trees. They don't see these things. I'm not sure you guys have seen it also. So they bring in someone like me. I'm the expert. I'm the PhD in persuasion, influence. I understand investor psychology. I know the steps people go through to make a decision, to open up their wallet, hand over the money, what you need to do to get them in a comfort zone. And you can really overwhelm people with information. So sometimes, if any of you are taking notes while you're listening to this podcast, less is more. Less information is sometimes better. You want to disclose everything that you have to legally disclose, risk factors, whatever. But focus on the good. Focus on the uniqueness. Focus on your main offering and the main benefits, and that's all you need. In many cases, if you do a great job there, you're going to get the money.
Well, and if you hook people in the beginning over your idea that's so fabulous and what have you, raising money is incremental too. So if you can get them at the first stage and you convince them that you're trustworthy, that everything's fine, that if you invest, this is what's going to happen to you, make it simple, make it basic, and they jump on, then you can take them deeper and deeper into the next phase and the next phase, because you've already got them there, and they're already happy, and they're already making money, and they already like you. Now they're going to go with you wherever you want to lead them.
Exactly. One of my current clients I've been working with for just about a year now is a high-tech medical company here in Southern California, and they have some breakthrough products for operating rooms, for surgeons. Their first market is retinal surgeons, these highly skilled surgeons who operate on people's eyes, and they have created a visor where it uses augmented reality and artificial intelligence, and it pumps in information that surgeons have never before had available. It enhances their visual acuity while they're operating on the eye, and then pumps in information. And it's really remarkable. And our investors that we've been able to bring in this first year have largely been optical surgeons and other surgeons and other doctors. And we're finding, to the point that you made, Vicki, that because we built the trust, we're able to go back to them, because now we finished up round A funding and we're doing round B. We're able to go back to them, tell them about the new patents that have been awarded. We've received 14 patents to date, and we have almost 200, about 198 that are pending around the world. And they're putting in another, at first our initial investment was $25,000. We raised it to $50,000. And some of these doctors are coming back in and putting in another $100,000. A few of them are putting in $200,000. And that's what you can do when you have trust. You can go back to the well. They believe in you. They see the progress. They see what you're doing. And it's, part of the psychology of investment is that it's easier to sell someone who has already bought something than it is to sell a brand new person. There are certain people who, yes, for example, they buy Mercedes, and, the car is 4 or 5 years old, and it's time to get a new car, and for whatever reason, they're not going to change to a BMW. They're going to go back to a Mercedes, or maybe you're a BMW person. People buy what they bought before. This is part of investor psychology when you really get into it. I found I got my master's degree in marriage counseling before I went on to get a PhD, and remember I did 2 internships, and I noticed that when people got divorced and they told me about their first wife or husband and what they looked like and what they did, and they get remarried, they tend to even marry the same kind of person again.
Isn't that weird?
It is. It's just something about the way humans are wired. Human beings are just so remarkable.
They are.
This
They're
is
hard to
true.
understand sometimes. But Donald, you mentioned before the whole art of persuasion in terms of getting someone to actually, purchase or go forward with their investment. There's also a element of authenticity in that too, right? I mean, people know when you're not being authentic with them, and I think that's another big time problem with a lot of these CEOs that just kind of like reel things off, and they're not believable in a way. Do you find that a lot, or how do you deal with that?
I find that the people themselves are believable. Most of them really, really believe in what they're doing because they have to sacrifice so much to build a business. If you're building a real business and it's not just a hobby that you're trying to pretend is a business, but you can tell when they have skin in the game. They have. One of the things I like to look for is, have you invested your own money in this? I mean, sometimes people come to me and they say, Dr. Moine, I'm trying to get these investors to put in, all this money. And I say, well, how much have you put into it? Nothing. Or just, I've just, just do the absolute bare minimum. And, there's a saying that you have to eat your own cooking. You go to a restaurant and you ask the chef, well, do you eat this? What's your favorite? Oh, I don't eat this kind of food. You're not going to be very eager to try it yourself. So you have to have skin in the game. You have to be authentic. And as Vicki was talking about earlier, talking to people, listening to people, you can't just rely on a platform or, a fancy website or sales funnels, whatever. Those are important. But you have to, at some point, get on the phone, get on a Zoom call. You have to have a human-to-human, eyeball-to-eyeball, belly-to-belly, real conversation. And just even talk about non-business things like, do you have kids? Ron and I were talking about where Ron lives in Vegas, and I had a second home in Vegas for 14 years, and turns out he started off at a place that's like about a mile away from where I was. I bought my house at the Las Vegas Country Club, my second home, because one of the fears people have, going back to investor psychology, is that you are going to get their money and run away with it, because you hear these stories, and they happen. They do happen. That's the whole TV show American Greed is about people that run away with people's money, steal people's money. It's the Bernie Madoff story. $8 billion or whatever it was. They're afraid you're going to jump on an airplane when you get our money and go to Rio de Janeiro or someplace that does not have an extradition treaty and live the high life. So, just sharing things like about your family. And Ron was telling me he's been in Las Vegas. He's from New York. He's been in Vegas for 15 years. He's involved in real estate deals. So, you're talking to investors. That's an important thing because there's a lot of newcomers in Vegas. Carpetbaggers, people that come in from another area, and they suddenly want to raise a bunch of money. And, when people know Ron's story, Ron, you're going to have a big advantage. You're grounded. And if they hear your story and they hear a story from a newcomer, they're going to trust you a lot more because, they know who you are. They know that you're probably not, it's a very unlikely you're going to be picking up and leaving because you've got roots in the community. Same is true for Vicky.
Well, right. And, you just brought up another interesting point about building up trust. A lot of times when you go to, let's say, meet people at these conventions or trade shows, pitch deck things, that kind of stuff, you're meeting face to face and you're shaking hands, and it's kind of nice to be able to talk to people. But you mentioned like nowadays with COVID, a lot of this stuff is happening over Zoom and teleconferencing. It's hard to get that same kind of emotional connection with people, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. It really is. It's more difficult. It can be done. It can be done. And one of the things I want to share with all of our listeners around the world is that, folks, we're talking about some of the challenges in raising money. And I don't want to be too negative here because the truth is, folks, and this is exciting, it's never been easier to raise money. It's never been easier. It's never been less expensive. Because of all the tools, because of crowdfunding. We didn't have that. When I started off, the way we did it, that was before the internet. And the way we did it, working on Wall Street, Ron's from New York, I was there on Wall Street, is we got phone books, these 400, 500-page phone books, and we would start calling people. We would start calling, and I was working with stockbrokers at the big brokerage firms on Wall Street, and we would go, we'd look up in the yellow pages medical doctors or, just anyone we thought had money, car dealers. We'd call car dealers and try to talk to the owner. And it was just all on the phone, and we would bring in millions and, tens of millions of dollars. It was tough, though, because you got so much rejection. The goal was 200 smiles and dials. You had to make 200 phone calls a day, and the vast majority of them they're not going to respond. And some of them are going to say, you call me again, I'm going to call the cops. Never call me again. They would threaten us. It was wild. And, you get kicked in the teeth. But then you just persist and you smile and dial. You do this every day. And, I was working with guys that were, this is a long time ago. They were making $1 million a year or more in some cases. That was a lot of money back then. It's still a lot of money. But now you've got all these tools. You've got the internet. You can rent lists of accredited investors, folks. You can, that didn't used to be available. You can just rent lists. They're relatively inexpensive. People that have an income of $200,000 a year or more. I know how to get lists of people that have, a net worth of $5 million or more. I know a company that rents lists of like 487 billionaires. I'm not recommending you do that, but I know how to get these lists. And so it's never been easier, folks. Don't be discouraged. This is a great time to raise money because the stock market's at an all-time high, the real estate market's at an all-time high, and most people have never had as much money as they have today. And so they're open to the right opportunity.
Well, look at it this way, Donald. At least you were getting these "don't ever call me again" threats from strangers. I get the "don't ever call me again" from ex-girlfriends. So these people know.
Hey, Ron, Ron, that's a whole other program, man. That's a whole other program we got to do.
Well, as you say, it's easier. This is the easiest time ever for raising money, but it's not like a do-it-yourself project. Nevertheless, it might seem simple because there's everything out there, but it's really a kind of complex process. And a lot of times people think that business owners and that they think, well, all I have to do is fill out this paperwork and do this and then launch my crowdfund, and then I can just sit back and tomorrow I'll have all the money I ever wanted to do what I want to do. But it's really not that simple. It's a little bit more complicated. So what do you suggest for businesses, startups that are ready to raise money, and what's the first step they should take in the process?
Boy, that is such a great question. I'm going to go through several things pretty quickly, and we can go into any of them in more detail that you'd like. But one of them is, folks, this is so key, and people, it's just overlooked. You have to make sure you have a great business idea, that you have a great investable idea. And I find that sometimes people have spent a lot of money developing websites, hiring consultants, hiring a lawyer, securities lawyer. And the problem, I hate to break it to them, but is their basic idea is just not that good. And, it's like the saying of, putting lipstick on a pig. You put lipstick on a pig, it's still a pig, and it's going to be hard to sell. And so you need to consult with someone besides your best friends, someone who's going to be a truth teller, someone who has a background, who can help you evaluate the quality of your idea. And sometimes you can just change the focus of what you're doing and turn a so-so idea into a really great investable business. I'll give you a quick example. I had a couple guys contact me about 5 months ago, and they wanted to raise $5 million to buy a cannabis retail business in Hollywood, California. A marijuana store, cannabis business. It's a huge, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. There's billions of dollars coming into it. It's created 350,000 jobs, and it's leading to billions of dollars being paid to local governments to pay for policemen, firemen, roads, hospitals. So, it's 92% of Americans support legalized cannabis at this point. Only 8% want it to stay illegal, which helps drug cartels. That doesn't help anyone. Even police chiefs want, marijuana to be legalized. They don't want to be chasing someone for having a joint. So these guys come to me and they want to raise $5 million. And I say, what do you want to do? What are you going to do with it? And they say, well, we're going to buy this dispensary, and we're going to really fix it up and massively increase the business. So how much is the dispensary? $3.5 million. I said, what do you need the other $1.5 million for? Oh, Dr. Moine, we're going to turn it into an Apple store. We're going to change the decor. It's going to be so cool, and we're going to do this and do that. And they sent me all these architectural drawings and beautiful pictures. By the way, they had raised $250,000 from friends and family, and you don't need to do any legal filings. You talk to Uncle George and Aunt Sally and whomever. And I said, how much of your money do you have left? And they said, only about $50,000. I couldn't believe it. I said, what did you spend it all on? And basically it was these pictures, this pretty store they were going to have. And I looked at the economics of this, and I realized, this is just not going to excite investors, because you can make the store really pretty and put in all of this cool lighting and other things, and you're not going to significantly increase sales. You might have an 8% sales bump or something, but instead of being worth $3.5 million, the business might be worth $3.9 million. And, I had to, I'm a truth teller, and that's one of the reasons people hire me. And I had to share that with them, and unfortunately, they were not able to I didn't work with him any further because sometimes people want to continue the fantasy. They want to surround themselves with people who are going to rub strawberry jelly on them and say everything's wonderful.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, Vicki, you need to first of all figure out, is it a really good idea, and talk to people who are knowledgeable, who are going to tell you the truth. And then what you need to do is get good advisors. To your other point, Vicki, because this is complicated, folks. It's not a game for amateurs. It's not amateur hour. You can look at WeFunder, and you can look at some of these sites, which are great sites, by the way. I think they're fantastic. There's a lot of great crowdfunding platforms, portals. But you see a lot of very, very amateurish things there that are never going to get funded. And some of these crowdfunding sites, they even right there, I have to credit them with this. They have a big warning sign: caution, caution. Whatever money you invest is likely to be gone forever. It's likely to be lost. You should not put all your money into one deal. You should diversify it. But at this point, it's kind of like the warning on a package of cigarettes, saying that if you smoke cigarettes, you will die of lung cancer. Your lungs will rot away. They will turn black. And people just say, can you help me light the cigarette? They just don't even pay attention to it anymore. That's the way the human mind and emotions work. So you want to make sure it's a viable idea. You need advisors, folks. Don't try to do. This is not a do-it-yourself project. If you're serious about it, it's not do-it-yourself. You need experts to help you. And the third piece of advice I have is to really, if you're serious about this, you need to get about $50,000 together to start, because realistically, that's what it takes to hire, and you have to hire a good securities attorney. Don't try to do this stuff on your own. You can get into a lot of trouble. You can end up, with some very, very serious charges against you if you're out there trying to raise money and you haven't done the proper legal paperwork, done the right filings if they're required. So you need a good securities attorney, and then get a board of directors, because what you don't want to do is get together with your high school buddy and start a business and try to raise money. It's your high school buddy might be really cool, might be smart, might be hardworking, good person, but you've got to have some gravitas on your board of directors, on your
some credibility.
You have to have some expertise, because folks are going to say, why should I invest in Joe and Bob? These two nice guys that met in high school or college or wherever, when I can invest in this other company that has, well, for example, the company that I'm working with in Southern California that's raising money for this breakthrough surgical equipment. They have medical school professors on their board and lots of top surgeons. And, we can't all do that. You don't need that for most businesses. But whoever is the expert in your area, whatever kind of business you're trying to raise money for, you need some experienced people in that area on your advisory board. So those are some things that you need to start. And if you do that, you're going to have a big head start over probably 80 to 85% of all of your competitors.
And if you don't have the right experts, the professional consultants and counselors and attorneys and marketing people to help you to plot out your plan, sometimes doing things yourself will cost you 2 or 3 times more, because now you have to hire the people to fix the mistakes that you made because you thought you knew what you were doing and really you didn't.
Exactly. And sometimes you pay even more than that, because the ultimate price is not raising the money. And one of the major reasons that businesses fail is lack of funding. So just think about a simple thing like opening a restaurant. You're almost there. You've got the lease. You bought the stove, and you've got the kitchen equipment, and you have this and you have that, and you're almost ready for the grand opening, but you don't have the money to hire the staff and you fail. And that story is repeated again and again in businesses in every industry in America. You're almost there, but you lack that last bit of money, or you get it open, and then you don't have any money left to advertise, to promote, to bring in the customers, because customers are not going to find you automatically. Investors are not going to find you automatically. Even if you're on a crowdfunding portal, or there's a reason that we have marketing professionals in this world and advertising people, because it works. The reason that Google became $1 trillion company is because people do Google searches, and they respond to Google advertising. And that's the same way Facebook makes its money, is through advertising. So you have to assemble that team.
Nobody can buy your product or your service if they don't know that it exists. And if you don't let people know how wonderful you are before you ask them to invest, there's no reason why they should or even find you to invest. And it may be the best idea that ever existed, but if nobody knows about it, it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
Once you've decided and you're on your way, and for whatever reason it's not really working, and you're not raising the money that you thought you would or that you would like to or whatever, how do you make that choice and say, okay, this isn't working, how do I go to plan B? What do I need to do to pivot from what I'm doing and take me into a direction that's actually going to be successful? When do you know that, and then what do you do?
That is a great question. You have to do a deep dive analysis. And this is where people like the three of us on this call can really be helpful to folks. And you need to bring in new eyes. You need to bring in new brains, people who are going to be honest with you, who are going to be truth tellers. When I was talking with one of my clients recently, and at first I was kind of insulted by this, but then I realized it was actually a compliment. He said, Dr. Moine, you have a big BS detector. He said, you're very good at detecting BS. Oh, okay. Yeah, but you have to talk to someone who's going to be, I call it tough love. I love my clients. I will walk over hot coals for them. I will crawl over broken glass for them, but I'm going to be honest with them. I'm going to be truthful. I know you guys, Ron, Vicki, you're like that also. So that's when you have to bring in the expert outside folks who can x-ray this, because I've sometimes had folks wait too long, and then they finally hire me. They come back to me and they say, Dr. Moine, I think you were right when you shared this with me a few months ago, and I want to launch another business. I don't want to make the same mistake again. And so they hire me to do basically what I call a post-mortem. Their first thing they tried failed. It did not succeed. It died. And just like you do a post-mortem on a body in the morgue, we do a post-mortem on the business. Because, folks, the truth is, if you don't deeply analyze an experience, you're going to go through it again. You're going to repeat it. You're going to think, I just didn't work hard enough. I didn't call enough people. I didn't rent a big enough list of investors. And doing more of the same is not going to yield different results. You have to pivot. You have to do something differently, and that's where you need the expert advice. So, my recommendation is bring in the expert advice as early as you can. It's not as expensive as you think. Because the ultimate price is failing, is not succeeding. And by the way, folks, I don't want to be overly critical. It's okay to succeed. I've had things I've attempted in my life where I have not succeeded, and I've had to, try again. I've written several books, and I've had, some book ideas, and I've worked on projects, and I've taken on to major publishers. My agent has, and I haven't been able to get someone interested. And then, with other ideas. These publishers are just all over it, and the book ends up getting published in 14 different languages. So, you look at any successful investor, you look at Mark Cuban, you look at Richard Branson, you look at anyone, they have a number of failures in their background. They have things that didn't work out. I don't even call them failures. They're learning experiences.
Exactly.
And they make you stronger. Yeah, they make you stronger and smarter.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Well, who was it that said, somebody said that if you want to succeed better, you have to double your failure rate. I forget who said that, but that was an interesting quote. And and I'm sure there are business owners and crowdfunding people, issuers who are listening to this podcast right now that would love to get more information on this and contact you. And what's the best way that somebody can get a hold of you, David? Email, phone, website? What do you got?
Well, there are several ways. I'm pretty easy to contact. One of the easiest ways is simply to hook up with me on LinkedIn. My name is Dr. Donald Moine, Moine, and so just send me an invitation to connect. Say, hey, I heard this incredible, wonderful podcast with Ron and Vicki, and let's connect. And that's it. I'm gonna connect with you. Also, I have a group on LinkedIn which is called Raising Money, Reg D, A, C, and more. And you can just, if you're on LinkedIn, just in the search engine, type in Raising Money, and it'll pop up, and you can click to apply. And if you're involved in raising money, if you ever want to raise money in your life, you can join the group. You can post things in there. Vicki and Ron, you can post about your podcast or crowdfunding. I allow people to, do self-promotion. Some of these groups are real uptight, and they say, don't promote yourself. I don't want you to solicit investors, and unless you have the approval of your lawyer. So don't say send me money, but you can send them to your website, whatever you want to do. So that's another way to connect with me. And I've got a very simple old primitive website that I need to update, but that's Dr. Moine, drmoine.com. You can check that out. I've got some resources there. And my contact information's on LinkedIn. So those are some ways that you can reach me, and I'm happy to connect with. I'm connected to folks all around the world raising money. By the way, folks, I want to share one other thing with you real quick. I know we're getting near the end here, but folks, I only joined. I was telling Ron before our podcast today. I only joined LinkedIn 11 months ago, and I've got 6,400 connections. And I'm, having more people connect with me every day. So one of the things I've mastered is LinkedIn marketing, and I'm helping people use that to raise money. So it's you can meet anyone. I'm connected to Saudi sheiks. I'm connected to movie directors. I'm connected to probably about 1,300 people in the cannabis and CBD and hemp industries. For some reason, have connected with me because they want to raise money. And you can reach anyone, medical doctors, anyone you want, you can reach on LinkedIn if you know the right tools. So that's something we can talk about in a whole other podcast someday. But this has been a lot of fun. You guys are great interviewers.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to put all these in the show notes, links to everything we talked about. So if anybody's listening to this, you just click and you'll go to the websites. But I got to tell you something. One of the things I really like about this podcast and the insights that you've given us today, Dr. Moine, is that this whole thing of persuasion and sales, it applies to all forms of crowdfunding, basically your life in general. It doesn't matter whether you're doing a Reg A, Reg CF, the 507. It doesn't make a difference. These are just the tenets of being successful, right? So Vicki, doesn't this make you just want to go out and? I feel like I've learned a persuasion lesson today myself. How about you?
Exactly. And it's not easy to raise money. It's difficult, and with so many tools, why would you want to recreate the wheel when you can go to Dr. Donald Moine and Let him help you do it right the first time from the beginning, instead of having to suffer through a post-mortem and have him tell you what you did wrong. Do it right from the beginning. Don't recreate the wheel. Don't think you know it. Get the experts to help you. Absolutely.
Right. And Donald, again, I really got to thank you for being on the podcast today and taking time out to talking to our audience. It really was a pleasure, and we just got some great information today from you. Thank you so much.
It's been my pleasure.
Excellent.
Everyone, folks, use what you learned today, because Vicki and Ron and I want to hear your success stories. So use what you learned. You know, there's a saying that knowledge is power. The truth is, only applied knowledge is power. So, folks, go out there, apply what you've learned today. We wish you a lot of success. Bye-bye, everyone.
Absolutely.
And Vicki, again, thank you for co-hosting this episode. Folks, you're listening to the Mappable USA podcast on MappableUSA.com. If you go to that website, you scroll down, you'll see all our syndication sources. We have a lot of them. Just pick the one that you like best and subscribe, and you'll never miss another one of our episodes. If you want to be a guest on the show like Donald was today, there's a guest tab there. Fill that out. We'll see what we can do about getting you on the show. And then if you like what you heard today, send us an email, info@MappableUSA.com, or just leave a comment on whatever page you're listening to this on right now. So thanks for listening. Thanks for all your support. We'll be at you next week with another Mappable USA podcast. Have a great week, everyone.